Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Focus on Liberia on the Marketplace, where we talk everything finance and economics, business and economics. I am your co host, Gabriel. Today, I have Deadpool with me, and we're going to talk about the impact of current economic trends in Liberia. The impact of current economic trends in Liberia. And I think we may have, if you've been following the show, you may have notice that we've done this topic before. We've covered this topic before when the Russia and Ukraine war, just started, and the supply chain disruption and how prices, started going up and impacting, especially African country and everybody, especially the European country as well. So we covered this topic before, but we felt the need today to talk about this because of where we are today. Again, economically, where we are today. There's, I think things have actually exponentially change, especially if you look at the gas prices. It's not just in the U.S. anymore. Every country is pretty much struggling with that. We look at the prices of food, especially wheat. Um, so that this is something that is actually has been dragged right back into the limelight, and we feel the need to talk about it and see, specifically for Liberia, where we are and how people are being impacted, currently in Liberia. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. We usually have our regular host, myself, Depu, Alex, Larry. Again, I want to take this moment you know, to offer our condolences to Larry. I think his father-in-law just passed, so he won't be with us today. So, Larry, wherever you are, we pray that God, covers you and your family. Um, but hopefully, Alex will be joining us later on today. So for now, until further notice, is going to be myself and our we call him the residence economy on the show here. So, Depu, um, as I said earlier, we've covered this topic before. We just feel the need again to revisit it because of where things are globally. And if you've been following the global economy, things have exacerbated, especially here in the U.S. where gas prices are average about $5 a gallon. And I think from what we're hearing in Liberia too, that's it's pretty much the same thing. Not just Liberia, all around Africa, gas prices are going up. But more importantly, there's also the impact of food as well. Food has gone. The cost of food has been, uh, you know, significantly high. So this is what we want to talk about. I know you yourself are an economist, so I think the audience will like to pick your brain today, and we will like to hear and discuss most about this about Liberia. So again, um, as I always say, welcome to the show, man. Nice to see you.
Yes, thank you, Gabriel. Thank you. Good to see you again. I just want to say good evening to the people in Liberia and our people here in the United States and those who are listening to us. And first, let me extend my sympathy to Larry for the
Mhm.
loss sustained. And we pray that God will console him and his family. I just want to say thank you for the topic. I know when people discussing about global issue now, the economy around the world is in fact I call it turmoil, global
Mhm.
turmoil everywhere now because of this war in Ukraine has exacerbated pre-existing condition created by the COVID-19. So
Mhm.
every country gets faced with difficulties, and one of the things that there now is that it's about time for a country to think more about the vulnerable population
Yes.
in recalibrating whatever economic structure or system they want to put in place.
Mhm.
So how do they tackle that to ensure that the vulnerable population are protected? And as I said during our last discussion, the World Economic Indicators for 2022 stated clearly that more than 85 million people in 2022 have gone below poverty line.
Mhm.
And with
Mhm.
this gasoline and fuel crisis coming from Ukraine, it's likely that this will be more than what have been projected.
Yeah.
So we always have to think about smaller economy, especially so countries that are import dependent, like
Hmm.
Liberia,
Hmm.
will need to find some domestic, cushioning that can help to protect the vulnerable population, the poor people. So that's one of the main things we need to look at. So
Hmm.
the inflation is to tackle the inflation is getting difficult. I think government will have to bite some. They have to now bear the pinch of some policy prescription, see how best to stabilize the economy. So I'm happy
Yeah.
that we are here today to discuss it so we can go into detail. It's a very good thing. And
Hmm.
I hope that we can give opportunity to those in Liberia to call because when you hear from the ground, it's better than what you might read in the newspaper,
Right.
what you'll be reading on international news, what the IMF is saying, what the World Bank is saying.
Hmm.
You read it, but the reality will be said or be heard from those who live in a community and know how to feel. So
Yeah.
besides
No,
calling family members and friends, it's good for us to give time to people in Liberia to also speak. Thank you.
yeah. No, perfectly said, and I absolutely agree with you. There are some things that you touched on, especially the policy uh, prescription, if you will, and cushioning. I think you mentioned the word cushioning. How do we make it less impactful or less severe on the everyday Liberian. But I have two graph here I would like to share with you. Sometimes when we talk about these things, people can say, oh, you know what is happening in Europe or what is happening in the US doesn't impact or Liberia or our Africa as a whole. And sometimes it's one thing to say it, to say that, to counter that, to debunk that, but it's another thing to show you some data that supports that. So first thing I want to talk about, first I want to share this slide that talks about where the inflation is actually increasing around the world, right? Hopefully the audience can see this, right?
Yeah.
So this is directly from the IMF source, right? So if you look at the sidebars here for the countries in the top, which is inflation is going up by 50%, and then the next one there is actually 20 to say 50%, right?
Yeah.
Then I think we fall Liberia fall right in the middle there, 10.
20 to 49%.
Thank you, 20 to 49%, and then
Yes.
uh, yeah, so I think we fall right in that middle there, right? Now look at the entire Africa and see where inflation is hard hit in around Africa as well, right? But the reason why I show this chart, we're showing this chart is pretty much to tell you that what is happening currently around the world is not just isolated. If you guys are aware, we're in a global village. What happens in one country happens in another. If the pandemic hasn't taught you that, then I think you're probably living under the rock. But this is the reason why I share this chart. I want to share another one with you before I will pose my question to Depu.
So
Just
in Africa, you will say that
yeah, go ahead.
we talking about Africa, then that means we're talking about South Sudan is a country with a worse situation, followed by Ethiopia and Zimbabwe.
Yep, yep,
Yeah, so
yep,
they are into the hot zone.
yeah. What country is on the middle there? Which country is up there by what is it? 245.
That's what
Uh,
I'm saying is
yeah.
uh,
What is that? Is that Ethiopia?
no, that should be South Sudan.
South Sudan. Okay, sorry. I skipped my
Ethiopia is
geography class there.
on the
Go ahead.
yeah, Ethiopia is also in the red. It's in the same zone with Liberia.
Yeah, yeah. So but there's another one I wanted to share with you. Hopefully, just bear with me here, and then we can, take it away. To get your input on that. So this one is pretty much what Now, I don't like to make things general, and the reason why I don't want to make I don't like to make things general because we say how. what constitute inflation, right? Uh, in calculating inflation, we call what's called the basket of goods. So the basket of goods meaning the things that people spend the most money on. So
Yeah.
you look, yeah, exactly. So you look at it collectively, right? That constitute a basket of goods. Now you can say it varies from country to country, and I will agree with you to a certain extent, right? To say, hey, what constitute a basket of goods in the U.S. or in European country may varies from what constitute a basket of goods in Liberia or Africa as a whole. But this in general, from a general standpoint, we're looking at the cost of housing, the cost of food and non-alcoholic beverages. We're looking at recreational activities, right, and culture. We're looking at transportation. We're looking at furniture. Those are the things that people spend most money on. Will also healthcare fall into that as well. You talk about insurance over here. A lot of people pay insurance on their car or yourself. You have insurance on your car, yourself, and your house. Pretty much everything you have has insurance. We talk about the cost of education. We also one of the basic thing. You can't walk around naked. You got to buy clothes to cover yourself. The cost of clothing and also communication. So those are what constitute a basket of good here. Now I will allow you guys to maybe Depu and Alex to talk to me about what we think might go into the basket of good in Liberia. And the calculation of inflation is very simple. The cost of year two in prices minus year one divided by year one as well time 100%. That is pretty much saying the cost of now minus the cost what it was before divided by what the cost that it was before. It's pretty much that simple. That's how you calculate inflation uh, from a general standpoint. So, gentlemen, I know this is a very debatable question. Um, Hold on, we got Larry here. Oh, Larry's here. Okay. I mean, Alex. So, with that, sir, welcome. Um, I was gonna put police out to go find you, but the police guy, I couldn't find him. I'm
Are you
glad you.
getting me?
What you say?
Are you are you are you getting me?
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yes, perfect. So, welcome to the show. I will get pose this question to.
Okay. Because I'm not hearing myself.
You're not hearing yourself. That is, we're hearing you. We're hearing you pretty fine. Depu, I know this is a very debatable, question, or what goes into the basket. What do we think goes in the basket of goods in Liberia? Like, what do you think people spend the most money on a daily basis? For a typical Liberian family.
I think one of the things that give in terms of Liberia, we're talking about food, you're talking about energy, and obviously these are the high commodity, the core. That what
Hmm.
carry the core inflation to be very frank. Food,
Right.
energy. Yeah,
Okay.
so and from all indication the government always that's why whether the current or previous government always want to fight to see how best to provide some cushion or subsidy for rice importation and rice production. The same thing with
Hmm.
the gas and so oil and food. I mean energy and food obviously are very much greater.
Yeah. Okay. What about would you put transportation in that basket as well?
Yes, inclusive transportation.
Oh, yeah. You muted. He's okay. Alex, can you
Yeah.
hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Can you hear yourself?
Um, no, I can't hear myself.
Okay, well, we do hear you. We can hear you pretty well. So again,
I'm
welcome to the
hearing you,
show.
Alice.
Yeah, yes, I can hear you. Yeah, let's go ahead. Since you can hear me.
Okay.
Yeah.
welcome to the show. So the question that I posed to Depu is that uh, I think this is your, you recommended this topic that we actually revisited. I know we covered it before, but you recommended that we revisit it, and I agree with you. Um, so I just shared some charts about where the global economy, I mean, the inflation is mostly impactful. I also shared what goes into a basket of goods in of to calculate inflation here in the U.S. The question that I was asking is what do we think goes into the basket of goods in Liberia? So meaning what do we think most Liberians spend their money on? Like, I mean, I know Depu said food, energy, and
Transportation.
transportation. Um, and so
Housing.
housing, yep, housing. Okay.
So those are the basic commodities such as rice, especially like
Yep.
like you said, food. That would rice will include food every day. People get around with by way of transportation. So
Hmm.
the price of petroleum or gas, what you call it, and people got to live. So and also entertainment. People,
Hmm.
a lot
Yep.
of people
Entertainment.
buy beer, stout, and those things. So basic commodities like that, and I mean people also go to school, so the price of school
Education.
materials
Yeah.
and things like that.
Okay. So one thing that Depu did mention is how do we? I know was too early on in the show, but I wanted to just jump into that. What do we think the government can do right now, given what is happening around the world, to this word Depu used that I want to keep pointing pushing to make it less impactful, to make it so the people average day Liberian, as you guys would like to say, doesn't feel the blunt force of what is happening around the world. What do you guys think the government can do to make it to ameliorate, in a sense, the impact of this global um, inflation that is happening, especially with the gas prices, as you guys are aware of? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the this is a worldwide phenomenon. Like you said, I mean there's no two ways about it. Governments, countries around the world, and um, citizens in the different countries and around the world, people, human being as a whole, is feeling the pinch. In the U.S. here, we're grappling with the price of petroleum. Some
Yeah.
time ago, it was around 300 and something dollars, and we were all complaining. They tried to bring it. It was 400 and something. I mean, $4 and something.
Hmm.
And they tried to bring it down by infusing more petroleum into the market.
Hmm.
But right now, as we said, the average price of gas in the U.S. is around $5 on
Yep.
average. So today I bought gas for $468. I mean $4.68.
Hmm.
So you can see now in Liberia, it's what officially is supposed to be $5.90,
Yeah.
but unofficially it's as high as $1,000 and things I mean from it's as high as $10, not $1,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So people are selling it $6 and things. So the government is trying to what the government could do. Liberia is not a petroleum producing country and things like that.
Uh,
Liberia import a lot of these products, and it depends it depends on the price on the market. So
uh,
what is happening is that the petroleum importers are saying they're paying more for it, then they're selling it. The government is saying no, don't sell it too high,
mhm,
because when it's sold too high, this especially at this time, the citizens are going to feel let down by the government. They're
mhm.
going to say prices of fuel is high. Price of fuel is high. Obviously, when price of gas and diesel go up, transportation is going to go up. When
Yep.
transportation goes up, everything else is going to go up. It
Mhm.
happens everywhere.
Yep.
It used to be when I lived and worked in Ghana, it used to be the case. That determining factor for the prices of goods. One, I mean, two determining factor for the prices of goods on the market is that price of gas,
Right.
which as soon as the price of gas goes up, the price of transportation goes up. Every other thing goes up. The other thing is inflation. When inflation goes up, I mean, when prices are going up, obviously inflation is going to go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so in Liberia, what could be done, say from examples in other countries? I mean, the U.S. is a big country. We can't compare that.
Right.
But places like Ghana or Sierra Leone, we can compare that. So efforts is made to either put more, to import more, to open the market, to
Mhm.
import more,
Thank you.
and
Right.
and so there will be competition.
Yep.
All right. Once there's more people importing, there is that sort of input competition. So the price will kind of stabilize. But in these days where global prices are going up, the price is not going to calm down,
Hmm.
right? The price is going to go up. Now, alternatively, the government can intervene to subsidize.
Hmm.
But here's a case where our economy is also struggling.
Hmm.
With government, is also struggling to even pay salaries. We're seeing all these different borrowing initiatives to pay salaries,
Initiatives.
to ensure that salaries are being paid. We see institutions are crumbling because their operating cost is not being financed,
Yep.
so to speak. So this thing is happening. So how does now the government is talking about putting up $60 million
True.
for electricity situation to see that
Uh-huh.
the debts are paid, the debt owed to Ivory Coast is paid, and then other things so that the electricity situation comes under control. So
Yep.
there's so many things that the government is grappling with. So how does the government now subsidize the price of petroleum, right? So for example, if the price of petroleum, the real price of petroleum is $6
Hmm.
or $7. And if the government is setting it at $5.90, that difference, okay, that $1.10 or $1.20 has to be
Somebody got
paid
to
for,
pay.
has to be subsidized by the government. Where's the
Yep.
government taking that money from?
Yep.
So, the two things that government can do is to encourage, to open the market to encourage
Thank
people
you.
to compete on the market,
Yep.
and then
No.
or to subsidize. But the subsidizing part is a tough game. So I think the option is to open the market.
Yeah. I agree with you on that line, but I would like the come in, and then I will. I absolutely agree, especially with the opening up the market part. Depu,
Yes,
what do you what do
I'm
you
not
what do you
always
what do
talking
you
about opening market.
Right.
Realistically, the contagion of this whole war is felt almost everywhere.
Hmm.
So one of the things, in fact, the circular from the IMF and the briefing from the IMF is to ensure that most of the countries, to see the government should look at some policy prescription, particularly they need to address issues that have to do with responding to the needs of the poor. What the poor spend most of their income on. So
Hmm.
that's obviously will be something that has to do with food, transportation, and energy.
Hmm.
So while we are looking at the global market, the external market, how do we do it as a country? The first thing that these commodities are all input and they have so how external variable we don't have control over it. So how do we address this issue? Despite the subsidy that will be provided by government, you still have this challenge that on a daily basis, you will see hike in the prices of petroleum across the world. And food is also becoming a serious challenge. So I would think that one of the best policy that there is to see how government, the subsidy is good in terms of how to uh, bring some relief in terms of the input, but government need to now see how best to look at short-term crops production. Short-term crops production that is going to be very helpful in terms of intervention while we're looking at how to subsidize the importation of rice or fuel. You know, because one side of it will be it cannot be one side fit solution to the problem. that then say, okay, let's take care of the subsidized importation of gasoline. But if you even you do that, the gasoline price is increasing per day.
Mhm.
Will you continue to do that? It's also going to cause a serious shock onto the budget. Even though the IMF and the partners are also providing some cushioning. And as I heard, Liberia has been given the opportunity of accessing 30 million, which is going to fill in a gap that they already been created as a result of ArcelorMittal not coming in with its
Mhm.
commitment. So the government is having additional, I mean, excess of $5 million from the 30 million that the gap that
Is
was
that
created.
money loan or grant?
Obviously, we will call it a concession. It's not going to be a loan. I believe it's a grant. It's a
Yeah,
relief to most of the countries by now. So I believe so. It's not going to be a loan.
yeah.
But that's one thing. So with this kind of opportunity, you're having a $5 million, because we can say it's 30 million now because of the gap from the ArcelorMittal commitment. So the $5 million can be something you need to invest into something that will give us opportunity for short-term crops
Mhm.
production and food intervention, and that could be one of the best options.
Yeah. So, Alex, I know you
Yeah, but
talked about.
those measures are short term. What this the $30 million from IMF, those things are short term. So and this war in Ukraine
Dragging on.
is dragging on. I mean,
Yeah.
if I would say, I'm looking for the better word to say, whether it's not going to end anytime soon. And you know that, for example, the government's salary bill, as we heard in the debate with the National Road Fund situation, government's salary, which is around 24, $25 million per month. So if that money can be absorbed by just 1 or 2 months payroll, so what happens after?
Next. Yeah. Yeah.
My assumption here is that without addressing the issue of payroll, because we're talking about what was the gap in terms of the budget, because the fact that there was this condition on from ArcelorMittal that since they did not get the deal, they cannot give whatever commitment. And that's why the intervention from IMF is a very good opportunity for the country. But what I'm saying here is that if there's any deficit in this case, I cannot speak to that because the budget actually took effect just a month ago. And
Right.
sorry,
Yeah. So I know, Alex. I know you mentioned the uh, uh one of the solution as importing more. And that on that note, I do agree with you. And this is something from a economic standpoint. I think we it will make our market more competitive. This is how you reduce prices. This is what capitalism is about. Let the best man win. You give people the opportunity to bring in whether it's gas or food, and to have good supplies on the market, right? I agree with you on that. Um, why do you think the government isn't doing that? Because this is one of the biggest thing that we have a challenge here. We have oil supposedly in our country, but we're not refining it there. But at the same time, there's only few group of people that are importing gas into the country, right? And I agree with you when you said they should allow people to import more, give more people, I don't know, whatever right they need to import gas. I absolutely agree with you there. But why do you think this isn't happening? And why do you think this is creating or is creating, or it could continue to create a problem if that system isn't changed, where only few people are only importing gas because they have control over that?
So one of the things that Depu, I mean, one of the fallout of what Depu is saying is the
Right.
fact that that the budget, this year budget, the 2022 budget, that went up to $784 million dollars. The Asada Mittal deal was a good portion, good chunk of the reason why there was an increase in the budget number. All right,
Right.
so with that situation, we're already talking about a budget shortfall situation. So IMF relief money was targeted towards cushion, making and giving the budget a cushion with respect to the possible loss of the Accelerator deal, the money that was coming out of this Accelerator situation. So when coming back to your question, when one of the things that involves in opening market is, for example, um, the issue is not from the understanding from the petroleum importer side of things. The issue was not that the fuel is not available on the in the Liberian market, right?
Hmm.
The fuel is available, but the question was the one of the cardinal question was we can't
Price.
sell the fuel at the price that the government is demanding. The government is trying to ensure that petroleum price don't go up, forgetting to know that this is not a Liberia problem. This is a worldwide problem. So they're trying to restrict. So I mean, the guy is a business guy. He's not going to sell the petroleum for $4 when he bought it $6, right?
Can't do that.
He
Yeah.
can do that. He's into business to make a profit. He's not even breaking even. So how does he sell that the gasoline at that price? So that was the argument. That was why the artificial shortage of fuel on the market existed, and that is why it is even the price hike came about because the thing is about sellers. I mean, about importers is that normally in Liberia is that when they want to change the price. And this time around, they're not doing it artificially. They're right. You can
Right.
sell this item for $4. I bought
Right.
it $6, so I will hold it until you increase the price.
Hmm.
So one of the things I was talking about opening out the market is to allow the price mechanism to work. All right. And then that would give rise to the importers bringing in more and more so that we don't have shortage. Of obviously the price is going to go up, and it's not the fault of like it's not the fault of Sierra Leone. It's not the fault of US.
I know. Okay, thank you, Alex. Sorry, my grandson kind of interrupt. I got a
No, it's
call.
okay.
But the thing about it is that what I'm trying to say is that, in as much as we're talking about uh, the fuel price and the rest of it, one of the things that the government need to visit as soon as possible is to see how best to look at reduction of taxes and fees on certain imports because that could be an incentive for opportunity of production or expansion of investment in the economy. But wherein you have recalibrated and make sure that you have a tightening hard taxes already, it's going to be harming the businesses and the investment climate. So one concession that government will have to do now is to see how to review some of the major imports, major consumption commodities in the area, you reduce taxes for it. Now you cannot easily do that without having legislative endorsement because it has a longer lag. Fiscal arm has a longer lag than that of the monetary arm. So it's important. Maybe it might end up resolving to using executive order on certain commodities clearly that will help to relieve the situation. So maybe, for example, Liberia already have a problem. We said it last year, and it's still a problem like this. What we call the port charges. You may
Hmm.
want to remove some of these charges at this time to bring relief to importers. And once you do these things, it's also creating opportunity for Liberians, especially those who are sending things to Liberia, or investors or business people that are in country to import more. That could be
So
another side of it.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Yes.
Are you now, because if we are to a place where asylum is supposed to meet their, obligation and they fail to meet that, and we're now pretty much struggling now to get to this 800 and $785 million, and you are now saying that they should reduce taxes on importers, that is further going to put a dent in the budget that we don't already have, we can't already meet. So are you now looking at it from a volume standpoint that, hey, even though I want them to reduce it, I'm hoping that more people will import a lot of things that it will make up the volume will make up for the taxes that will be taken off. Because that's the only argument.
Obviously, in terms of this kind of situation, one of the best relief is not to increase taxes because there's recession, things are getting rough and already, and that's one of the best option you have. That's it there, especially with this whole what kind of PRT, what kind of import tax they put on container is already creating problem for most importers.
It is.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So once you drop these charges, you waive these things, you're going to expect more import.
And
And once you have
that fund is not even in the budget.
yeah, it's okay. If the fund is
That
not
one
in
is
the
not in
budget,
the budget.
No,
okay.
that one is not in the budget.
Okay,
Okay,
then
now,
they can play with that. Then they
so
have leverage
you
on
can
that.
see these are the opportunities you can create right now. But to say that the smaller businesses that are in a country, you maintain that kind of rigidity in terms of taxation for them.
Yeah.
And once they go out of business, what will be the end of it? You either lose all. That's the reality. So the best thing to do is to just free some things off and say, you know what, we are waiving this. Maybe what we usually do for bigger businesses or in kind of current crisis that you can get them a
Hmm.
break and say, look, you may not pay for this period between June 2022 to May 2023, you guys are at liberty to import additives. That itself, you will see the response. You will see the velocity of the little cash that go into the economy. Other than that, I don't really see any major thing that you can do now. One, I said earlier, is to see how best to subsidize the production of agricultural products, especially short-term crops production, food crops, mainly food crops production. And the next thing would be you want to look at the port charges and other import charges that are there. You drop it to increase the imports and opportunity. Next option, which obviously it will take some time, but it's not very much important. The thing will be the monetary side. I don't know what this whole issue of interest rate has to do with the movement in the economy, but how many people go into the banks, how many people taking loan from the bank before we discuss that. So for the poor, I think your best option would be playing with the GST or playing with the fees at the port. That could be.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, I mean, your points are good, all right, but and here we're discussing possible solutions, right? So those are some of the solutions. So what I would add, Depu, is that the government now needs to be realistic, needs to be truthful, because the situation that is going on around the world is it's not the government's fault, right? It's nobody's fault. America is feeling the same thing. America, a great country that America, the dollar is averaging $5. Prices of commodities are going up. Gabriel showed a chart on inflation. Inflation is skyrocketing everywhere. Unfortunately, one of the things, the truth that we got to tell is that we got to tell our real inflation. Okay,
Yeah.
I was reading something somewhere, and I don't know how true is that. They're talking about the inflation in Liberia now is 7%, and against all this high inflation, I don't know. Sometimes it makes me feel like Liberia is another country somewhere else. When in the midst of economic challenges around the
I'll
world,
let you make that argument.
with recessions going on, different
Yeah.
argument. I mean, different countries. Liberia is still saying that inflation is going down and going down. Exchange rate is going down and going down. Exchange rate is stable and stable. But meanwhile, the opposite is that prices are high on the market. Okay, the cost of transportation has gone up by not $50, $20, by $100
Yeah.
on the average everywhere. Some places it's $200, Liberian dollars. I mean to say. So, so this shows that inflation itself is high, because inflation is such that when the prices of goods goes up, inflation is parallel. It goes along with the prices of goods. It doesn't
Right.
go the opposite. So, government. Another thing we're saying is that of course, over the past few years, government has been recasting budget all the time, apparently to escape the trap of budget shortfall. But this one is realistic. Harry said this in some of our shows that the this year budget is not achievable. It's
Thank
not
you.
achievable because the 785 million is not achievable because these are the things we're talking. So going by DEPU's policy prescription and some of the things that we are saying here, obviously there has to be a budget recast downwards
Hmm.
to reflect some of these challenges because the budget increase to $785. Some of the components, key components include the Estella Mentor deal, right?
Yep.
Key component includes what Depu is talking about. One of the things is the goods and services, the increase in the goods and services tax, right, to 11%, and then also the fees, the tariffs on foreign goods coming in, right? So, and then also lastly the loan from the World Bank and the IMF. Now we're talking about another $30 million. Deborah was not too sure whether it's a concessional loan or it's a grant, even though he does always say grant, but it sounds more to me like a loan. So,
It got to be a loan.
so if we are going to cut down on the goods and services situation, if we are going to cut down on the duties, the input duties and tariffs and things on bringing goods in the market, obviously you see that government is not going to attain that budget, that revenue that was forecast. So meaning that you got to go back to the legislature and say, hey, this is the reality of the day. This is what is happening in 2022. This is not our fault. This is a world phenomenon. These are the specific, and also not just the legislature. Be true to the citizen.
Hmm.
Be true to the citizen that this gas price is beyond our control. It's world market phenomenon. There's no way we can maintain a price of five, even the $5.90 that was said. The petroleum producer are backing off on it, even though there seemed to be disagreement. Apparently, there was an agreement, but the same petroleum producers, importers, are saying no.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult.
I agree with you on that. For let me just say this, and then Deborah, you can come in. I agree with you on that. You cannot go to someone who is making a business to say, "Oh, I want you to charge this price." Like you, I think you mentioned that earlier. People are in a business to make profit. And if you are, the economy is having a problem, you want to go now and say, "Oh, I want you to charge this price." We've, I like to always point people back to our history. We've done that with the whole rice thing, that how it led to the whole rice thing, right? You cannot just go and tell somebody that's meddling with the economy. Like you're meddling with the economy. If you come to somebody and say, "Oh, the gas price is this much, I want you to charge this much," hey, they might agree to you to an extent and say, okay, because I was putting out 100 barrels, you know, every day, because you want me to charge that, I won't be breaking even, but just to the agreement, I'll only pull out 20 barrels. There's still gas shortage on there. They're going to keep holding out to that other 80 barrels monthly until the price go to where they need it to be. There's still money. So in essence, you're interfering with the market economy that we're talking about, that open the market up, allow people to have more gas. I mean, a lot more people to have, gas imports. The same thing with every sector of the economy. You cannot go there and say, oh, you want to go tell people to, oh, reduce the price, and the people will pay you by reducing the price. That is messing up. I would say this thing, and I learned what we need to do is find a long-term solution. And I know we'll get to this, but find a long-term solution, like trying to countries around the world are creating reserve, gas reserve, in case of these things happen. You have a reserve to tap into, right? When the gas prices go down, buy a lot of gas and put it into the government reserve. So if something like this happens, you can go back in and tap into it. But you cannot go on to say to the people, the gas importers, and say you want to tell them, I want you to sell this price, this gas for the gas. It's never going to happen. If you do that, it's going to work for a short period of time, but over long term, you're going to create a problem within the economy, and people are going to it's going to cause a problem over that. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I think Gabriel, I agree with you because in any case, to go for gas price control right now, I think financing that we want to be fighting with in terms of price control is something that we can put into other expenditure opportunity by investing, spending on the poor, by giving the cash to them or food distribution or something that will help to stabilize them as you go through the challenges. But I think it will be advisable you let the cost of that increase be taken up by the consumer, because if you really look at it realistically, it's becoming volatile around the world. So I would, if I'm in the position, I won't advise the government to keep fighting that bullet. You got to be truthful to the people and let them know what the economic reality is. And I said a couple of days ago to one of the policymakers, I'm always, I'm not surprised in a way, but one of the shocking thing that despite all of the situations around the world, the president cannot take time to speak to his people, and he has to provide leadership. He has to be in a position to talk to his people and give them the confidence and tell them the story where we are, what are the challenges, instead of just keeping quiet and everybody just assuming in every statement coming from, genuine statement coming from other people. So the person is opposition. So you create this scenario that you politicize economic issue. So at the end of the day, the citizens are suffering because you're not being very realistic with them. So it is important that he speaks to the citizens and tell them, look, this is the global situation we face. These are what happening around us, our neighboring countries. How are they accepting? How are they, preparing their country for it? Then from there, you make some policy pronouncement to give your citizens this relief, instead of just keeping them in suspense and so on. People keep arguing in the street, people on the radio talking, and there's no policy prescription, no policy direction. It gets the country to be in more, I'll call uncertainty. It gives the people more uncertainty than what we should expect. So you have to be very deliberate. Speak to the citizen, tell them what's happening, what they should envisage in the next 6 months, in the next 5 months. Then people will now understand, the business people, everybody will. But petroleum importers are going on strike. The writing paper is going to. It's not the way out. It's not the best way. Have a conversation with them and come out clearly and say, look, gentlemen, what do you do? What's the economic team? What are some of the recommendations? And we take the recommendation to the business community, you meet the business community, then you come back now to the citizen and brief them and say, look, we should brace ourselves for this. Instead of waiting for people to be speculating every time, oh, because of this, no rice. No, that is not how you run the economy. It's not the best way. I would think it's better you face your people, tell them the fact, let them know where we are. Then, like that, they will prepare themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it any better, right? That is, I mean, that is why you don't. And I hate to go back to this, but that is why you don't form an incompetent government. You don't, and as a result, Liberia is not short of expertise. So when you form such an incompetent government, and you form a government based on sycophancy and praise singers and people who don't have confidence in themselves, people who have not led organizations before, people who don't have track records, people who are not independent minded, people who have to look up to somebody for some breadcrumbs. This is what the kind of situation you have. So people continue to lie and lie, that all is well when all is not really well, when everything around you is crumbling, and you continue to lie and lie and lie. And some people think that other people should not speak, should not talk about their country, because they think that they are the arbiter of knowledge and everything else. So the lies that we're telling, we're lying on exchange rate, we're lying on the calculation of inflation, when it is obvious that all around the world, inflation is skyrocketing, but Liberia is in its isolated space, and inflation is in single digit. I mean, so when you continue to tell these lies, it continue to catch, it continue to catch up with you, and you continue to lie, and then you don't want people to talk, people to shut up, people should not talk. Then you're branding people as opposition operatives and stuff like that. Well, then you continue to paralyze organizations, I mean institutions in a country because of your failure, because of your lies, because of your boring initiatives. You continue to stifle on citizens, and nobody should talk. You see, so you got to be realistic. You got to, they put, like you said, you got to come to the people and explain what it is. You can, for example, in this particular case, you can't tell the importers of petroleum that, oh, you got to sell the thing at $5.90 when it's not realistic. It's going to backfire. Right now, transportation is high on the market. The people are feeling the pinch. Guess what? Us, we who are in the West, we who are in the US and other countries, our bill is going to increase. Do you know the amount of people who is in my inbox now who are asking for gas? It's like the gas. Guess what? Y'all get ready. Gas money is another money was coming to start sending to Liberia, because people are already in the inbox saying, please send me $100 for me to buy my gas.
Yeah.
Please send me $50 for me to buy my gas.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So gas money is another thing we got to add to our budget. We who are in America.
Yeah.
So if your government continue to lie, this is what you get. Yeah. So therefore, you're right. Come to the people, be realistic, and tell the people, because this budget, we're not wishing by on the country. We're not wishing for the wrong things to happen to the country. But when people continue to lie and lie, policymakers continue to lie and don't listen to other people, other critics who will bring good suggestions on board for them to take, and everybody should shut up. This is what you get. So we continue to have this conversation and hammer down some of the problems that are going on, so our government can listen. That's all we want. We want our government to listen to some of the things that we're talking and stop lying and lying and lying and lying, right? Yeah. And at the same time, you want to enrich yourself in a such situation. People who could not even afford to rent houses for $20 at building mansions are all over the place, and things are happening. I mean, and then the citizens continue to suffer. This is what you get out of lies and lies.
Yeah, that's the Alex, I absolutely agree with you and Depo. That's the that's and I don't mind them debunking what we say here or what but if you're gonna debunk something that somebody say, come on the show and prove what you're saying. That, but you don't, like you guys say, we don't see them anywhere. They don't come out, they don't say anything. And it's to the point that Alex made. We think gas, it hasn't gotten worse yet. They're expecting price per barrel of gas to go up to $60 per barrel. I think we're just at 110 or 120. They're expecting that to go to $160 per barrel. When that happens, if this gas pricing we're talking about, it's going to get worse. So I agree with you guys. I don't mind them debunking what we're saying to say that we're lying. It's okay for them to say that's opinion. But just as we are doing what we're doing here, we want to hear from them as well. Or come on the show, say, hey, I heard you guys saying such and such and such and such about the inflation, about the economy. This is why we don't believe that is true. Come and prove what you're saying. But, like you guys said, they continue to debunk and we don't hear anything from anybody. My next, if you guys, I'll put this back out to you guys before I ask the
before
question.
going to your next question, one of the things besides asking the president to speak to the public, one of the things that I think is becoming challenging is the way they structure the budget. Realistically, I will still go back to it that they have not been able to take into consideration to prioritize something that has direct impact on human development, that have to do with health and education and food, agriculture. So as a result, the spending priority have been misdirected to security and all of these things. And now, productive sector, they have to do with agriculture, manufacturing, these sectors are actually struggling with this. Because I'm told you're about to do the recasting of the budget. So to recast the budget, meaning that this government every year they do recast, so it's not to avoid the new budget shortfall. So they're gonna do another recasting soon.
But if
But
you look
why?
at, you're definitely right. I mean, if you look at the trend of the budget, it's like almost every year the government is doing recast because
Yeah.
they want to avoid budget shortfall. Right?
Yeah.
And they
So
also always want to proclaim that there's budget shortfall. I mean,
Surplus.
there's budget surplus and all that stuff.
yeah.
When you go into
So
the legislature almost every year and doing a budget recast.
I'm challenging the legislators themselves. Instead of negotiating their interests, they should be negotiating the interests of the people. They have like the situation we have now: food, oil, price of oil on the market, transportation. These things are things that directly serve the people. In terms of pocket poor, many people are already pocket poor as a result of insurance. So I mean inflation. So what do? Your best option now is to speak for your people and say, look, where do you when you're doing the recasting, what are you taking? Which one are you shifting? What are you taking as a priority? That itself will help us now to address the issue. So you can go ahead with your next question.
No, the next question that I wanted to ask, I think you guys may have really touched on that, and the question is, how do you guys think this will cause, like this setback that it will have on the budget? Like, how impactful do you guys think this is going to be? Even though it hasn't happened yet, I know they haven't recast the budget yet, but this whole the gas price, the inflation, and now you guys are saying that Salamita hasn't met the end of the bargain to supposedly what got our budget to a 785 million. How much impact do you guys think is, huh? You're muted, you're muted, you're muted, you're muted,
I wouldn't say
you're muted.
maybe you can say that. Well, the correction is, I wouldn't say a Salamita has not met its side of the deal, but the deal itself has been sent back.
Right.
Right. So that's the issue. So yeah, you could say that, but it's not all that Salamita has not met the deal.
Right, exactly. It's still in working process, right? We
Yes.
haven't gotten to that point yet. With that being said, how much impactful do you guys think this is going to be to the budget? Like to the point, like even if you want to think about it in terms of what areas do you guys think it will impact on the budget, and who's going to bear the brunt of the consequences?
Realistically, in terms of the appropriation made from the current budget, I will tell you that we have to look at as much going to the security sector. Let me say Ministry of State, Ministry of Finance, the EPS. These entities are not generating, they are not revenue generation entities.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, they are not, social services entity. So you need to see how best you look at the social services sector and how best to address constraints in those areas. And the next thing that there is that to reprioritize what have been appropriated in sector that don't really have relevance on production. I can give you, for example, what it takes to produce, let's say, beans. If we were to say rice production is a constraint, but the more beans you have, the better protein you have to substitute for the nutrition of the student, right? And now you target and say, okay, it will take how many months for beans production? You finance that directly. You can make huge impact in terms of food production. You can say, okay, cassava production. You can say many things that people is more labor intensive, and at the same time is it create job, it create income for household as well. That's what we need to focus on now. It is sad that we spent the first $30 million on the COVID response and just distribution of rights. We didn't know where the rights went. But it's about time now similar action be taken to the agriculture sector. I would think we focus more on agriculture sector. Then the next thing that you want to focus on now is the issue of energy, electricity. They need to address the issue of electricity. The more electricity you have, this is why I can say clearly, the more electricity you have, and people production will increase, manufacturing will also increase. That is why you need to focus on right now. We have to do that.
Yeah, Alex.
So if you look at the budget, for example, and you look at the revenue side, all right. So what are those components of the revenue side that will be impacted out of this? Because the revenue side will give rise to how you spend, right? So if we're talking about, for example, when we're talking about the Estela Meta situation, we are hoping that, but again, the legislature sent it back, and that means that there's certain things that Estela Meta should have done. They have not done yet. And then, of course, with what is happening on the world market and stuff like that, so Estela Meta itself, is in a corner by itself. So this is a difficulty with that one. So we know that the budget also contain some portion of loans from the IMF, World Bank. Those monies are coming, so for sure. But then we're talking about taxes on international trade, where that which is a big component. That is the import duties on these goods that are coming in, and we're talking about government subsidizing or having some tax releases. We're talking about, in fact, to the extent that government can issue, the president can issue executive order in the absence of legislative prescription. So those are things that will bring our revenue envelope for the year down, and maybe pushing on to, so our medium-term economic forecast has to be readjusted, right? So for the next 3 years, to say, okay, what's the possibility of this thing impacting? It's already impacting 2022. It's going to impact 2023 because the war in Ukraine is not going away in the next few months. We're praying that it goes away. We don't want the situation of war in war, but again, unfortunately, we don't have control over that. It's going to go. So we need to look at our medium term economic framework to see how we can adjust that, not just 2022, 2023, and probably 2024. So that again, that is going to impact the revenue side, which will mean additional impact to the expenditure side.
Yeah.
So like the people say, how do we then begin to adjust for this coming, for what is coming? Again, we go back to being realistic. All right. Being realistic with the people and being realistic with ourselves first, and being realistic with the people that, hey, this is going to come down. This is not our fault. This is as a result of the war. Other countries are going through this. And obviously the budget is not realistic because, we set up on good faith, we set up all these forecasts based on what was going to happen. But unfortunately, nobody expected that there was going to be war in Ukraine and the fallout. So that's what we got to do. So we got to adjust the revenue side first, then we adjust the expenditure side. Now, the reality of the day is, it looks like we are already even before this the fallout from this Ukraine war and the world economic trend, we were already having difficulties in meeting these numbers. What the government has been doing is to focus on paying payroll, because payroll seems to be the biggest devil, right? The biggest fear of the government, because if you don't pay payroll, this government does not want to repeat some of the things that happened in the past, right? In Taylor government or in the initial stages of Ellen government, where sometimes payroll will not pay. I mean, even though it was normalized under the Ellen government at the last years, but the government wants to continue on that trend to ensure that payroll is paid, because if you don't pay payroll after harmonizing the people payroll already, cutting down on the people's income already through harmonization, and you're not able to pay them, they already decided to go in their little silo and keep quiet and bear the pinch of the harmonization. So on top of that, that harmonization technically was about cutting people's salary, and people's salary was cut. So people are still feeling the pinch. People are still vexed within their soul, within their bodies. So government does not want to add insult to that injury by not paying the people. So if government does not pay the people, there's going to be a backlash. And election is coming and all that stuff. So government is trying all its best to pay. That's why you have all this situation going on. That's why some of the reasons why some of these a lot of the entities are not, their operating costs is not funded. And then with all these different sporadic projects we're doing, with some of them, may not have been budgeted. All these different sporadic projects we're doing, that these project to sort of year we're celebrating, when people are celebrating building flyovers and building stuff, we're celebrating, we're dedicating and celebrating
pool,
something which is not a swimming pool, which is just a water fountain. I mean, because all this kind of stuff, they're eating into the budget instead of facing the real issues. So we gotta be realistic in pointing out to the areas of the revenue that's going to cut down. And if we are providing incentives, to inputters to ease off on some of the burdens and the prices, then we got to cut down on the taxes on foreign imports and things like that. And then, like Depu say, we got to cut down on some of these entities, the money that we're giving to some of these entities. We're pushing money into security sector, for example. Some of those monies are placeholder for other things. We know that. Pushing money into other budget to put it in and put it out for other things. We know that. So stop some of these things. Stop the bleed. It's time to be fiscally disciplined and stop the bleed. Stop putting monies where they are not supposed to get, and be realistic.
Yeah. All right. So I think I want us to wrap up at the hour 30-minute mark. At that point, I'll let you make a comment, and we'll go on break. After that, then we just take comments from the audience.
There are some realistic thing I know people I share with you guys. The Ghanaians president was trying to commission 100, mining equipment. Those equipments are intended for small miners, artisanal miners to use to ensure that they will avoid using mercury.
Yeah, I saw that. That was what I was trying to actually refer
to. And realistically, besides this, the resolving or solving the environmental component or the degradation, the use of the mercury will, change on the economy. The next thing that there is that it increased the productivity of the miners, thereby increasing revenue as well. These are things that more practical, more tangibles you look at. But you have an economy that is driven by money, but we depend more on the extractive, the bigger e-cliff industry, and not looking at how the illicit money is affecting the economy. Because there are so many gold, diamond entities, illegal companies, or some shallow companies in the country, and not accounting for it. So illicit, money had taken over the country because of this dishonesty. So we are losing revenue. Those are leakages in the economy that are leading us to have revenue shortfall. So how can you review these things? How can you tighten, your monitoring mechanism to see that you have other opportunities to ensure that you arrest these things? It is not something that require a rocket scientist to enforce. It's simple as saying, going forward, look, we are now going to see, we already got a Kimberley system in the country to ensure that you got the testing wherever diamond are living in the country. So what you need to do is to tighten your border security, enforce it. People at the port of entry, people at the airport and everything do the inspection. But it's something that government can can generate revenue from. Besides that, one of the things that if they can invest, besides the mining sector in terms of empowering the local miners, one of the easier things that you can do now, I'll keep going back to it, is the food sufficiency. The food sufficiency is our best option now. You have, it's not good for him to mention the EPS always, but it takes $5 million out of 10 million that they have, and $5 million that are given to just farmers. You know what's going to be the result? Huge impact. You can do a lot of shifting. The legislature increased their budget from 38 million to 64 million. Imagine that. Extra, $24 million added. You say, look, it's not feasible now for us to execute this. Where we are caught from the global financial crisis. This money is going to be frozen. We're now redirecting it to other productive sector. You go now and start encouraging local production. That's all you can do now. I will encourage the Ministry of Information. That's one area that we are not touched. Not much marketing has been done to our tourism sector. People are traveling around the world. Tourism is booming. Next to Sierra Leone, Gambia, the rest of the places. But Liberia is having serious challenges with tourism. Why can't you be marketing? The natural preserve, you have so many beautiful places you can now start marketing. We have internet now. You can just be zooming other places and say cities. I was just young people who just did their program right in Ganta recently, and local radio station, they have the opportunity to just zoom the various hotels in Ganta. And you see the swimming pool. Tourism is another area we can increase our revenue from without going into any expenditure. Just make sure that you reduce some of the challenges that people will have. Hotel costs in Liberia is very high, enormously high. Why? If you to get a single room in Morovia, a real good, it's $200, $150. That you go next to free time is about $50.
Yep.
So how do you expect the tourism market to boom with all the constraints?
Yeah. All right, so let's get in. I think we should just get into the comments.
You're talking about tourism. That reminds me of Chris Naniga. I listened to his interview on 50/50, and he was also talking about the tourism. He's passionate about the tourism situation, the things that he's doing for other countries, and things that he will well do for our country. And sometimes I visited Gambia, and what I saw there in Senegambia, like what. Excuse me. This is something that we could do. I mean, it's not a big deal.
Kenya and Tanzania make over $2-3 billion annually on tourism. That's what you need to look at. It's nothing big that we cannot do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yeah, and the funny thing is in Gambia is that when I went to the reptile places, some of their places, the town, the place you go to get to that place, is just like you're passing through some shanty town around in Morovia and behind, and people through that. Just a little strip. Government just built a road and that's it. Just you come off the main road, you just go there, and that little strip between October and March of the following year, the place is jam packed. Human beings spending money. People have their houses they build around that are using it for guest house and stuff. Money pouring in. Those people pouring. Just the attraction. Just the marketing of that kind of product. And Liberia is not short of those spots.
Yeah,
right?
We got
when we
part that way.
Yeah, when we went to the GMAT meeting, when all these from 2006, when all these people from foreign nations were. I mean, I could imagine how the people from other countries, places they were going, places they were interested in going, right? All kinds of. I mean, sometimes I got like they will bring us all these different places. So it
So
can be
Theo,
fun.
what's going on with Theo today?
I have no idea.
I think you're having the internet challenge.
Yeah, that's he keeps coming on and off, and it's
Theo,
Yeah,
are you
if you
there?
want to bring a comment in or you want to bring something in?
yeah. I figure we should just go into the comments. I wanted us to go and break, but I think we should just go into the comments and then uh, respond to that and wrap up. Who put this up? Okay, I guess this is we have a history channel coming up. What is it? What's today? Okay, we have the history channel coming up later on today at 7 o'clock. So I guess that's a reminder there.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a great program. I
yeah,
listened to the past editions and it provided a lot of education. That's a
yeah,
good program to listen to.
perfect. All right, so I know with time well spent. Let's just jump into the comments real quick, and then we'll wrap up here. Um, the first comment here. This is from Dr. Paibo. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. He said focus on Liberia. Focus. He meant focus on Africa. I mean, focus on Liberia. You're amazing. The diversity of your topics and panelists is what every organization of your kind needs to learn from. Dr. Edison. All right. Let me see here. And the person said the following from contact. Let me try to pick. All right. Yeah, this guy here with his whole stuff. Man, this is man. He said there is a saying about Karl Marx. Oh, this is Max is here.
Yeah,
That there's a saying by Karl Marx that, that man is a product of economic forces, but history makes him what he is. As Liberians, in our quest for economic development, we have not have the hindsight of history, especially saving for the future. We have had iron, we have had iron ore in commercial quantity, but today we have no reserve, and even the little that is left is fast depleting like timber, gold, and rubber. What significant social services can we show for the exploitation of these resources, even as little as uh, I don't know if he completed, you know. But any of you guys want to respond to what he means over there?
let's move on. There's another one on the
Okay,
by Edison Pajibo as well.
okay. He said government intervention in terms of the market forces is what is is not sustainable. Oh, thank you, sir. It's not sustainable, especially so if the current global economic problem remain unabated. We need local production and a
The evolution of
revolution
the
of a middle class that will absorb at least 50% of what is produced locally. The starting point is agriculture, out of which a middle class will emanate. Man, I love this guy's mind. Beautiful, sir. We
yeah.
should have you on the show
There's
one time.
Gabriel. There's another one he also wrote. He said, I can read it quickly. He said,
Yeah,
"This
go ahead.
war is not ending now." Okay,
Okay.
read that one.
Is that this one?
No, go ahead, read that one.
Okay. Is that in addition to reducing the tariffs at the port, the government also need to review its monetary and policy rate. I mean interest rate, so that more people can borrow from the. Oh man, I love. We should bring. I'll reach out to the guys to bring him on the show here, so that more people can borrow from the bank. This will bring about growth in the informal sector, particularly small and medium-sized scale businesses. And he always signs it with his name.
Yeah, but Gabriel, I think you're alluding to this about the interest rate. One of the policies could think
Yeah,
about how far can it go. It's not in the U.S. where they take the interest rate up or down by just a quarter of a percentage point, and things can change around.
Right.
So again, but that is one of the solutions. That is
Yep.
one of the solutions that downstream.
Yeah. I think it was Depu who alluded to that. It was Depu.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. This is Emmanuel again. He said, wow, lies will not create supply and demand for petroleum production in the supply chain. And we have Dr. I think this is the one you're talking about, this comment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This war is not ending now. Russia is noted for fighting war of attrition, prolonged war, and unmindful of the casualty. The economic management team needs to put its act together to avoid serious recession, if not worse. I agree with him. Depression. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, that's what we're
Okay,
saying.
so now,
You guys want to respond to that? I think this guy has been, he's taken over the
yeah,
show.
thank you. I think Dr. Pachibo, he's been following closely. That's good. I'm also glad that my man Dayton Sabo is watching from Ganta. That's the economic hub right now in Liberia. I think I'm encouraging them constantly to have some program that will expose the businesses in the city of Ganta. One of the things that, as I agree with Dr. Pachibo, I mentioned that earlier. The monetary side that have to do with the interest rate, the reality there is that is not much is being done on that side, and there's still this challenge of the financial services, and that the central bank need to take hold of it and see how best they can improve it. Because commercial banks, the interest rate and the terms of loan in the country can kill any investment. 12 months at a very high interest, 14 or 15%, we cannot achieve anything. It's almost a killer. They need to improve that. Besides that, one of the things that he mentioned, we talked about it earlier, is that are we really looking at how best to empower the local entrepreneurs? A friend of mine who is a business practitioner, a business owner, just recently told me something that was, it was very discouraging. He does business and trade and also loan people. And people felt that, look, this guy have been, he's in opposition, so they cannot pay his loan because he's in opposition. Why is he making more money? And that itself, and I said, that cannot be true. He said, I'm serious. I'm worried how I'll get my money back. You see, so the economics of today's reality and the politics of today's reality are all the things that are convoluting the situation we have in the country. We talk about productivity, it comes from the Liberians who are trading, who are making business, who are employing people. You need to encourage more of these people who actually come out with their own investment. You need to look for a way to even give them tax breaks. You need to look for a way to expand their businesses. But again, we see policymakers who themselves have not had experience on how these policy itself work in their private life or their family life or their business life before ascending to public sector. So it's difficult to understand how people are being affected. So that's one thing we need to do. We need to encourage Liberian businesses, let them invest into farming, let them invest into value chain, any production that have that value chain.
Thank you, Depu, for bringing the interest rate thing into proper context. Okay, in the context of the small business and versus the loans the interest rate on the loans right, and Depu is right. I mean, the interest rate. I have taken loan from the bank 3 different times, and I have had other people who have small businesses who taken loan. Sometimes they say, "Oh, Liberian people, you have to pay a loan and all that stuff." No, all of that is not very true. But if you have where interest rate is 14%, 12%, 13%, it makes it difficult. And there was a time where there was some of the bank, I won't call the names, but for so I can cause reputational damage. But there's they had some of the small business loans, and A lot of the businesses that took those small business the loans were suffering just to pay that money. At a certain point, they were leaving, they were doing their business to pay that loan because the terms of the loan and the interest were so high because they were on loan that were not collateralized. So it was tough to pay back. So some of those things needs to be addressed. And you remember that the government said they had I think $1 million for small business loans and all that program and all that. Where did it go? We had news that it went to their own people and things like that. So those are some of the things that the government can intervene in the market to with those kind of programs to develop the small businesses, thereby developing the middle class, right? As Dr. Prajibo said, and they put in proper context. So yeah, those are some of the intervention.
Yeah, no, and the thing that kind of puzzles me about Liberia oftentimes is all we model everything after what is happening here in the U.S. and yet still we don't do that. Like you said, the $1 million, for for small business loan, we have the SBA here that almost every small business taps into. We create a system that we have the same thing in Liberia, but nobody, I don't even think it's even funded or even Liberian businesses are aware of it to even be able to take advantage of that. So it's kind of baffles me. We have all these rules and regulation and business ideas on the books, but we do not follow them. We don't subscribe to them. We just you know come in and do something different. Um, Let me see if I can go through some more comments here, and then we can
Yeah, I
wrap
have.
up.
Let me acknowledge somebody here who's lovely mood flowers. I believe it's a lady with a
Oh
picture.
yeah, I think I saw it here.
Say,
This one
wow,
comment.
coincidentally, two of my instructors from the University of Liberia are in the studio. She's not talking about you. She's talking about me and the.
Oh, that was a good blow. I like that. Yeah.
So don't have Klime here.
Oh man, that was man, that was below the belt, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't even let me say anything.
I'll
You
let you
just cut me
learn.
off right away. Don't even think about it. Okay, sir.
I didn't want you to
Lovely.
learn at
You know
all.
what? Lovely. Let me speak to you. Next time you put your comment here, I will not read it. You're not talking to me. I'll not read your comment. Oh man, that was a good one. That was nice.
That was an icebreaker, right?
This is Henry. I always miss. Is it pass away?
Pass away,
How you
pass
say?
away.
Pass away. So no matter what they, no matter what they do, nothing will change because most of the money generated does go. Most of the money generated goes to the wrong place. Um. Let
Sorry,
me check.
I was tearing up from that laughter just now.
Yeah, that was. Oh man, the timing, everything was perfect. This is Emmanuel Jackson. He said illicit mining doesn't create industrial development, but environmental pollution of our natural habitat. Yeah,
Yeah, he has a point.
yeah, yeah. All right. Let me see here. So I have a guy here who's saying something. Dennis, I mean not Dennis, Dave Job. He says I strongly believe private Liberians should invest into tourism for their economic viability. If we relied, oh man, if we rely deeply on government involvement, it will be corrupted as all as always the case.
Yeah,
Um,
David. I mean, David. Let me speak to that a little bit.
yeah.
David, we're not talking about governments being involved in it. The tourism market, you are right. It is private sector driven, right? In Sierra Leone, for example, where you go in Sierra Leone all along the beaches. That's where the hills and the beaches. That's where Sierra Leone
Hmm.
tourism is. I've gone there before. It's
Yep.
all private business. But what the government does, for example, in Gambia, is provide the environment for on the other place here or and they build the road. For
Hmm.
example, if you wanted tourism to go to Cape Man, All you do is the road from the main road up to Bombay Highway is already
Just
paved.
build it.
The road coming from that road going all the way to Bowater is already paved. The problem is the road going into Robertsport and that crossroad. So that T road, if the government builds it and say, hey, you come or you have the thing here, you can't do your tourism, plenty of private sector will go there. People will build hotels. They will encourage those people. Just open up the place, provide the environment. We're not saying government should get involved. It's a private sector led situation, but the empowerment from the government by providing the environment. And of course, it also has to do with the general environment, the economic environment situation in the country, security situation in the country, encouraging more people to come in because tourism is driven by human beings. People come into your country. So if people have mixed feeling about your country, then you have just one set of people going there. But you can start. We always blame, the electricity. No, like David just said, the people, the same way the people operating other businesses and providing their own generators and other situations, they will.
It'll happen. They will do
They
it.
will.
Yeah. So I know time is well spent here. I don't think we have any more comments here.
Yeah, I got the icebreaker here. with the
I don't think she even have any more comment here. Even if she did, I wouldn't even read it.
No, I'm not talking about that lady. I'm talking about something different.
Oh yeah, the icebreaker. Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah,
but that interview with that Ghanaian lady.
Yeah, please elaborate on that. I
even posted. I made a post of it on my Facebook and the comments.
Yeah.
So they asked the lady the question saying, how do you see Liberia then and now, bearing all the things that have happened to Liberia? Then she seemed to be an old, back in the day lady.
Yeah.
And she sounded like a fancy somebody from the Western region, from the Tagrade area or Soyani area or something like that. She's not Soyani, from the Takrade area and those fancy there. She said, key things she said was Liberia was like a haven, right? You could get everything under the sun in Liberia, right? Liberia was the place to go. And then she said, Sergeant Doe, that is the CRC, and everything started falling, even though that is not the main reason. There were other reasons, but she said when Sergeant Doe introduced the Liberian dollar, that's when everything started falling.
Yeah.
Right. So what she's trying to say, and I was a little boy then, but I was grown enough to understand what's going on, and it's true. Those in the 70s, in the late 70s, as I remember, in the 80s. Ghanaians used, especially in the 80s, because there was this economic situation going on in Ghana as a result of all these different successful coups and stuff. So Ghanaians started becoming economic refugees around the world, right? So Ghanaians used to come to Liberia to shop, to even buy sugar. And Nigerians in Sierra Leone, other people used to come to our country because of the US dollars and because of the way Liberia was. Liberia was not perfect. Liberia had its own problem with healthcare and education and different things and stuff like that. But it was cool. It was okay. We were, living up like a small America. Like the French people used to call us small American and things like that. So people used to come to Liberia. Of course, some people used to come there for the wrong reason, to get our passport, to travel as Liberians and things like that. Yeah. But Liberia to them was a haven. People used to come to Liberia for vacation. Oh, we want to go to Liberia. Some people, like now, like the lady said, we used to go to Liberia to shop. Now we are going to USA and Dubai and other places.
Right.
Now, those countries, when I went to Ghana in the 90s as a result of the war, Accra was nowhere. They had gutters all over the place. But look at Accra today. Look at Nigeria today. Look at those countries. They have their own problems, don't get me wrong.
But they're progressing.
But there's steady progress.
Yeah.
So what she was alluding to is Liberia was, the key word is was.
Was, right.
Liberia was a haven. Liberia was a place to go. Liberia was where all this tenure and all this back to, it was a Liberia thing. Liberia owned those kind of projects, those kind of things. But what happened? Now these countries seem to be moving forward, progressing, while we are retrogressing. And for me,
Yeah, yeah,
I just think it's a result of successive bad leadership.
yeah. Bad leadership. I agree with you. You know, it's funny. I usually have a conversation with my mom, and she like, one of the things she would talk, and you will hear it from other older Liberians as well. The normal days. So I guess that's what was the normal day. When you hear with my mom talking about the normal days, she would say, "Oh, Liberia was great. Liberia, normal day, Liberia, this things was great." And for me, when she said that, I kind of like, hey, what was happening in the country at the time, and she will always talk about how how great the country was. So I guess that confirmed to what the Ghanaian lady was saying. But
Mhm.
I agree with you on the same token that it's these people used to come to Liberia to shop, like to the point when she said the Dubai and America, we used to go to Dubai. I mean, now we're
We
going
are
to
now
Dubai.
going to, yeah.
We're now going to Dubai, and that back in those days we used to go to Liberia. Can you imagine?
So put that in context and say
Yeah,
then
just put that
Liberia,
in context. The
yeah,
thing that people are
Liberia,
going to
you
Dubai
know.
now, we used to go get it in Liberia. Or in America, you used to go. They used to get it in Liberia. Just put that into context of how you know normal things were, or how progressive the country were at the time. But again, as you rightly said, it's all about. I usually tell people we had the opportunity right after the war, the president that came in to set the tone and for it to continue. But because that was never set properly, we're as you said, we're in this bad leadership. But I also think too, and people can nail me to the cross for this, I'll be okay. I also think too that specific thing that she was referring to, that specific time, it was only happening right in Monrovia there, right around the environment of Monrovia. But in terms of the other counties being part of that, I don't think you know they may have benefited indirectly, but I don't think it was something that
No,
kind of
Gabriel,
spread
no,
out to
Gabriel, we're not saying Liberia was perfect,
right.
but like, and we're not saying all that stuff was all. Hey, my friend, things were going on in Buchanan.
Right.
Things were going on in Yekepa,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Those days when they had Lamco, you could go to Nima County Lamco
Hmm.
and have a good time. You could go to Buchanan and have a good time.
Hmm.
I mean, it was not all over the country, but there are specific places people used to go, right? So Liberia was not a developed and all that
Right.
stuff, but the environment. So the context here is, could we have capitalized on that and improved the country?
That's Thank you.
All right.
That's what I'm getting to.
So
Right.
I lived and worked in Ghana from the 90s.
Right.
Ghanaians capitalized on the advantage they had. Ghanaians, when after Nkrumah there was all this overtrain, so Ghanaians become, economically non-viable.
Right.
Ghanaians were running away from the country.
Mhm.
But hey, when Rollins took over, he just changed the trajectory and look at Ghana today. They still have problems. They still have poor people.
Yeah. Yeah.
They still have inflation and other things going on, right? But they have progressed. Look at Rwanda. Rwanda has the same type of war we had, right? The genocide. But look at Rwanda today. So where are we? We keep going backward and celebrating swimming pool and what is not even swimming pool and it's water fountain and so
Because you told that girl that I wasn't the teacher, I will put you out there to come for you. I'll put your name out there to come for you. But no, this is a great discussion, and I think that I agree with you. We could have capitalized
and
on
a lot
that.
of times
That's the
because
point that I'm
I
getting.
lived and worked in Ghana, I have a lot of mates there. And a lot of times, look at my mates. They're all back home and
Mm,
well established and they're not even thinking about coming to America or
thank
whatever. They
you.
just come here to visit and come for other reasons. Go to London. They have dual passports. Some of them have three passports. They have British citizen, have American citizen. I go to Ghana today.
Yeah.
They come for me on the plane. You know.
Mm,
So but because their country has provided stability for them to thrive,
five. Yeah.
right? But what we've done, go back to history. What have we done since the 80s? We run, start over, run, start over.
Hmm.
1990, we run, start over, one, start over. When Ellen came to power, She started good. You know the amount of Liberians that went home? She started very good. But from certain years, everything starts spoiling. You know that a lot
Second
of
term.
Liberians that came back
Mhm.
and continue now into upon era, what is happening with the brain drain that is happening to Liberia. Everybody is, even today you talk to anybody in Liberia, they want to leave.
Yeah.
So that is what happens to a country when you have bad leadership. People just leave.
Yeah.
People just leave. The haven that we had in Liberia, it just dissipate.
Yeah.
So that's the context on which we was talking about. We had the opportunity to improve it.
Yeah.
And I believe that Madam Selig had the best opportunity to move our country forward. Madam Selig had the best opportunity. She started well for the first 4 years, but at some point, everything just went downwards, and everything.
You say that people want to nail you to the cross for that, but I think I agree with you. Absolutely agree with you on that. She had
the best opportunity to change Liberia after the war, and she did everything that was right in the first 4 to 5 years, but after that, and today it just continued. It just continued.
Yeah, but time is well spent. Again, to our audience, maybe do you have a closing statement on what we talk about, or either that or on?
Yeah, I mean, my closing statement would be, I think, regarding this, the discussion, the key discussion for the day. I think the government, the policymakers in the government has to be realistic. They have to be truthful. Yeah. They have to start making up these things and doing all these things. That's the only way. They have to speak to the citizens. The president has to speak to the citizens periodically and allay their fears and things like that. We can't continue like this. Obviously, there's going to be a budget shortfall. We know that, and they're going to go to the legislature to ask for recast. They got to look at it within the context of all these things that we're talking about, within the reality of the day, with the war in Russia, with the economic phenomenon, the trend of the economic situation going on around the world. You can't continue to lie that inflation is single digit when inflation is skyrocketing all over the world. Exchange rate, it can be where it is for all these years. It's not realistic. You got to tell the truth, otherwise things are coming. We know election is coming. We know you need a win, but the way you win the election is to be realistic to the people, so you can come and speak to them generally, not doing all these pseudo projects and thinking that the people will fall.
No, I thank you. I think that's it. I don't think I can add anything better to that. Than I think you hit it right home. Without further ado, as we always say, regardless whether you think we're speaking the truth here, or whether what is happening in the country is true. I mean, it's it's what we need to advance the country or not. Regardless of what side of the political aisle you're on, one thing that is a common denominator is the fact that we're all Liberians, and we always like to leave you with that we're all Liberian. So without further ado, we look forward to seeing you here next Saturday, same time, and see you. Have a good.
Thank you, Gabriel, and thanks to everybody. Thanks to our listening people who listened, and thanks to the people who commented, and thanks to people who were listening afterwards.
Yeah, perfect. Adios.
Adios.
Thank you.